This next segment, we're kind of going to move out of the all those current issues that we've been discussing related to COVID-19 and how it's affecting our fire season, and kind of get back into some of our local discussions. What I've set up here on the page, and again, we'll share these links later, are the resources we have for looking at our 2020 weather. That top one, which is the predictive nationally, is the seasonal outlook nationally for our trying to think what month we're in, April through July, apologize. They're basically the seasonal 3-month outlooks. They don't have an extend, but they do have a really good breakdown narrative region by region as well, and not just the pictures for them. The second link is something you can click on weekly. It's a link to the Eastern area weekly video. The Steve Marion, the regional meteorologist, every week produces that video, letting you know how the next 5 to 7 day outlook is locally for our fire preparedness. And then the third link is local weather. It actually takes you to the Mesa West page on the zone. So you can actually, you can pan out to other zones. When this one comes up, it hits the central zone. But it has links to our weather stations there. And it's also, it generates graphics. So it'll have an overlay on there to tell you what the temperature thresholds are across the zone, or the relative humidities. And there's a lot of things that you can view on that site. And what I find really nice is that it's also, in that sifters format, which is, one of those ways that we're trying to be consistent with how we're relating our information in the community in relation to the DNR as well, who use the sifters, which is the Canadian Fire and Fuels Indices, which work really well around here for us. And I am going to share something else. I didn't get a chance to get this into the PowerPoint. I got it yesterday afternoon. But what I would like to share is the information that I got from the National Weather Service out of the Marquette office. So this might start looking a little bit more familiar for you folks. Jackie Ritzman from National Weather Service was able to put this together for me yesterday. She couldn't be here today. She's working her midnight shifts right now. So I'm going to just try and kick through this and give us just a little outlook on what we can expect here in the UP, considering we may not be traveling much. She did start with the seasonal drought outlooks. And we're looking pretty normal, no drought across the Great Lakes region. And it looks like, the big focus is going to be out west again, Four Corners, California, Oregon, and Washington. And then also some conditions down south, Florida, southern Texas, places like that. For us, these are looking at the soil anomalies, basically the soil moisture that we have in the area. And it says here, with predictions running above normal for many locations across the region, and the recent addition of water-loaded snow across much of the Upper Peninsula, the magnitude of above normal soil moistures has recently increased. So as you can see us on the map, they actually have the UP in there. We're sitting at anywhere from 100 to 140% of our annual soil moisture. So we're definitely above on that scale as well. And as far as the drought severity index, the UP is looking at a +4 and above, which means it's extremely moist. And every indication it should stay that way for at least the next month and a half. But things can change. It looks like they have potential to change a little bit as we get into fire season a little bit more. So So you can see the temperature trends over the last few months have fluctuated between above and below normals. Last year we saw well above normal precip for parts of upper Michigan, but through the beginning of 2020 we've trended back towards near normal, and that's what these trends are looking at. You can see on the left hand side in 2019 there's a lot of green through that central part of the graph, showing that we had above normal moisture. This year, granted, we have pretty good soil moisture anomalies. It looks like we're going to be at a pretty average or normal year for rainfall. So hopefully it won't be too terribly wet of a summer. The temperatures, which is the graphic on the left side, and this is from May, June, July, are showing most of the Upper Peninsula with the possibility of above normal temperatures. Still, from what I've been talking to Jackie, not real consistent on that. It's kind of a wait and see, as well as some of the precip. And on the right hand side, it's showing most of the UP as near normal, which is in white. In some areas, like looks like Menominee and maybe southern Delta County, maybe a little bit above normal for precip. But again, she was kind of waiting that what if factor. You just have to really see what develops as the year starts to warm up. And this little bit of breakdown, both temperature and precip month by month. We're at normal this month, as well as May. But once we start getting into June and July, that's where she's kind of the wait and see, and what the models do is that there's a pretty good potential that we'll have some warmer temps and some drying trends as we get further into the summer. And you can see that that's indicative of the rain as well. We've got pretty consistent rain right now, or precip, whether it's actually snow. Looking into May, got a little bit of above normal, as well as June, but you can see as we get into July, it looks like it's going to be closer to near normal, and with the precip, and that coupled with the fact that we may see warmer temperatures, may give us a little bit later spike to our fire season this year. She shared the Canadian models, and again, the graphic on the right is the temperature, and you can see again consistently through the 3-month period they're looking at not strikingly high, but we are going to be above normal for temperatures, and it's showing near normal across the board for precipitation in the Canadian models as well. For July, August, and September, it still shows that we're going to be slightly above normal for temperatures. It does look like it's moderated the further it gets out into August and September. As far as there's a lot less of the tan, more of the yellow in there. And again, it looks like there's going to be pretty near normal precipitation through that 6-month outlook as well. So signals for above normal temperatures as we head into late spring and summer, especially across the eastern half of upper Michigan. The wild card factor is how precipitation will evolve and where the storm track will set up through the rest of the spring and early summer, and that's a little bit of the what if that I talked to Jackie about. They're still not really sure. In the near future, the models work great. The further they get out, there's going to definitely need to be some wait and see, and how the models develop and how the patterns start forming. Are we going to see Hudson Bay highs on a regular basis or not, as an example? And here's a little bit about the products that they put out. It's the fire weather levels. It's what they call their IDSS flow chart. So when we're under normal conditions, there's nothing really issued. When we get into elevated weather scenarios, that's the temperature 70 degrees, and RH is starting to get down 30 and below. If we don't have excuse me, if we don't have wind gusts that are greater than 15 miles per hour, they're not going to issue a special statement. If those wind gusts are 15 to 20 miles an hour, they will. That's kind of the splitting hairs on that as far as the elevated. And then once we move to critical, and you'll notice for us temperature wise, it's pretty static across this chart. But as far as elevated, we're looking at that first component. Wind gust is kind of the driving factor. And then as we move into critical, then the RH plays a little bit more of the factor. And having relative humidities at or below 25% in combination with those sustained winds equal to or greater than 20 miles per hour, then those would be the conditions where they'd be looking at either submitting or posting a fire weather watch or a red flag warning. I know a lot of that is fairly familiar with folks, and we always have a weekly conference call with Marquette about what's trending and where we're going fire weather wise. And so it's just being able to get yourself familiar with what these different levels mean in response to our staffing levels, because these are the type of things that are going to trigger us to look to staff up beyond our normal staffing levels on a day-to-day basis. She also wanted me to share the Upper Peninsula Fire Weather page. It's got a ton of really good information on there. This is where our daily fire weather forecasts are, and you can look at the modeling, submit spot weather forecasts. There's a lot going on there. There's probably more information on that page than I can think to get out right now. And then this is the National Weather Service National Fire Weather page. And you can see the beginning graphics on those. They're going to basically pop up any areas of concerns that are happening nationally. You can see that on the map on the right hand side, and then in the forefront on the left. This is where you're going to see those forecasts that are either monthly or 3-month outlooks for either drought or fire activity, anything that's going on, consistency. Like you might find an area that on that map that's in red on the right, and that's an area that's experiencing extreme fire behavior, as well as a consistent number issuing red flag warnings, that kind of stuff. And then here's the links, and this is actually a PDF, so I'll be adding this PDF in with the other material at the end of the refresher, so that we can get that out to folks and take a closer look. So it's got the close-up links for the weekly outlooks and potential outlooks for the fire season, as well as, like I mentioned, the daily fire weather briefings and the Marquette weather page. She also added some of our common watch out patterns that we look for in the Great Lakes area. And this pattern is basically a cold front from the northwest, which means warm and dry out ahead of the front with greater mixing heights. And it's typically drier along the front as it drops to the south, brings in dry air. And the main hazard coming from this is the shifting winds, those frontal winds that are going to shift on you as it passes through our area. The other one is a surging warm front, and that's associated with strong surface low pressure, and it's lifting up from the plains, which is just to the west and south of us. Once the warm front moves through, conditions become very warm and dry with strong and gusty southwest winds. So that's definitely a driving factor. That's the type of scenario that's going to drop those RHs and increase the winds. And then the strong surface low moving across the Canada-US border, typically clear with ample mixing across the UP, strong and gusty southwest winds, and very dry, and oftentimes preceded by a Hudson Bay high. So what they mean by that with a Hudson Bay high is you can see the center of the low where that big stripe of green is. To the north and east of that over Hudson Bay, you get a prevailing high pressure system that stalls and builds high pressure, and then it does it doesn't move. It becomes a large enough feature that other fronts that come into it kind of slide around it versus displacing it. But once those Hudson Bay High scenarios do dissipate or slide out or weaken, then that sets us up for getting these strong surface lows moving across with the dry air. And I think that's less. I thought we had one in there with a Hudson Bay High, but hopefully I covered that. And Hudson Bay Highs themselves, just in nature, by the way they set up in Canada, typically they're going to be drier winds, cooler winds, but we'll see really steady and high winds either from the east or southeast and northeast aspects as that high pressure system rotates. So a little bit different than the low pressure systems coming from the west. I'm going to go back to the slideshow, so bear with me for a second. So this is just another introduction and just knocking the rust off and letting folks know what the resources we have out there to gain information, especially now that everyone's teleworking. This is the Michigan Interagency Dispatch Center's website. It's fairly interactive. Stuff on that left-hand side, like fire information, stuff that's actively going on in our area. They've got predictive services with intelligence and weather links, fire and fuels danger. That intelligent link is where you would see the resources that are moving out regionally, and the activity that you're seeing locally as well. They got links to their aviation, and as Corey had mentioned, and I think Eric, that we're going to have a significant amount of aviation in the area to utilize. So it's a good place to key in on stuff like that if you miss a daily briefing. Dispatch Center also has their intel page, and this has got more of the local knowledge and what's going on in our region. So it's going to post the fire weather danger rating for the day, and that's going to be per zone. You can see that nice little color coding up there, that the east side is going to be the first one on the left, and then the central is the next one, and then the west side, Ottawa, is going to be in the center. And it also includes the Huron-Manistee east and west sides, which is nice, being a combined dispatch. In the event we go hit the road, it's a great way to grab some intel as to what's happening in the places we're going. It also includes all the resource statuses, so it'll tell each zone what they're staffing and who's available, and also who the duty officers are. It'll tell you who's dispatching that day and all their contact information, as well as what our activity for this zone is. On the right hand page, you can see in the middle and down at the bottom, those are all the activities that are going on, whether it's initial attack, smoke checks, could be a prescribed fire, as well as at the very bottom, total stats for us, as well as number of fires, cause, private land, total acres, just summarizing the activity we're seeing at the time. There's also some really good links in there too. The 6 minutes for safety, if you're not part of that briefing, but maybe get put in that position where you're staging, it's a quick place to grab that 6 minutes for safety for the day. And then also looking at the Eastern Area morning briefings and National SIP report are good notes to see what's going on in and around us. For me, a lot of times that plays into what kind of resources are available to us If it's really busy out west, you know, as an example, you know that it'll be a little bit scarce finding folks around here. Just to go over some of the radio protocols as well, just to start off with. Remember that the duty officers and the engines all have 800 megahertz monitor radios that we monitor. And in the last year, we've kind of changed the template to the channels in those. So I want to get those up there, and you know, just for folks to take a look at, you know, what we're calling them. And so for the Hiawatha and Ottawa, we've got command, and then the initial attack west, which is attack 1, and initial attack east, which is attack 2. And then we also have that shared channel, which is high of fire. So we can pretty much talk to everyone on that. The only caveat to this, and we're still working on getting some programming done and getting some newer radios. The Ottawa is already set up to do this, but their common channel over there is 31 Ottawa, and we're currently working on getting that capacity here. So in the event, you know, with these 1 day of travel, we certainly could end up on the Ottawa, being able to take advantage of that as well. And then talking with dispatch, and it looks like we're still moving forward with this as far as dispatch. If you are in the field, not necessarily staffing for the day, it's a great way to stay on top of what's going on. Dispatch will be providing the weather briefings twice a day. Still kind of working out the kinks on this, on the consistency. But this is what we're hoping to see every day of the week, not just staffing days, just so folks continue to keep up that mindfulness. And at 10:30, they'll give the AM briefing with the brief weather information and what our preparedness or staffing levels are, available aviation, and what the burn permit status is. And like I said earlier, in the interim, the burn permit status is probably going to be no a lot of the time. Then in the afternoon, they're actually going to read out what the weather observations were from WIMS, and that's coming directly from our weather stations in the reporting area. And then they're also going to touch on what the evening weather is predicted in the following days, fire weather. And then they're also going to give the predicted fire danger rating for the following day. And that's one thing to really pay close attention if you're out in the afternoon. Obviously, you know, our staffing schedule puts us on till 1800, but you know, if you're around close to 1630, having a good idea of what that following day rating is might play into how folks could be participating on a day-to-day basis. So if you're paying attention to that briefing at 1630 and hear that it's going to be high fire day, it might just get your wheels turning as far as you know, where you might fit into a potential fire day. And I want to cover this again, just to clarify. I know we got a lot of new folks too, and this is pretty, you know, big as well, because with the amount of teleworking that we're doing, it's not just the fire folks, but there are some folks still working in the field, yet their supervisors, you know, maybe working from home. So and being in the field isn't always conducive to using cell phones either. So just wanted to, you know, make sure that that resource is, remind folks that it's out there for them to be able to check in and check out with dispatch if they're unable to do that with their supervisor or with the, you know, the district level, whoever they're checking in and checking out with, just to keep that safety net intact. But communicating with is fairly specific. You know, they're monitoring essentially 3 different forests. And they are also, you know, dealing with social distancing, the number of folks in the office when needed. And so I want to make sure that you identify who you are, and always start with, it's Cadillac Dispatch. And then you're going to want to start off with the forest, the Hiawatha, and then who you are. So if I was just calling myself, I'd say Cadillac Dispatch, say this is Hiawatha Engine Captain 611, and then I'd also let them know what repeater I'm talking on. So it could be St. Jake's, Ty Hill, Onoda, but that helps them make sure that when they got the right person there at the desk, or whoever's covering that desk knows who to call, what repeater they're on, etc. So it'll speed up that connection. And some for the fire folks and folks that may be staffing on the engine, we aren't going to be one person per vehicle, but as far as NWC standards are required, if we're using the acronym for our engines, which is mine is 611, this example is 661. If it's not fully staffed or doesn't meet NWCG staffing guidelines, then it's not a fire-ready unit. So if I was just driving that truck by myself, I would say this is Captain 611 versus calling in as a fire-ready unit, which is Engine 661. So there's a few nuances to how you communicate with dispatch, but the whole idea is just to make sure that there's clarity there and you got good quick responses, and that in the event something happens, whether it's a fire-related injury or issue or not, that we have some good continuity there. And this is a fairly quick overview, but if you have any questions about that radio protocol, we can certainly answer more questions either at the end here or at this presentation, or you can talk to one of the captains or fire staff as well. So, and then another thing that came up was project information reporting. It's something we've been doing lately, and that's completing project site medevac plans. These are a little bit different than the medical plans that we would use like in an IAP or a RX burn plan. But it's just something to keep note. I know that Shelby has a template for what these look like that we'll be able to share. But if anything, when you're working in an area or it's a long-term work site, you want to include that helicopter evac site. And it should include either the legal and or the lat long, and be very specific about those sites, whether it's in addition to a lat long, that it's a particular road crossing, and try and narrow it down as much as you can, with the emphasis that we spend a lot of time working in one area, and we want to be able to front load that information with dispatch, and they'll actually log that as a site. So anyone that says that they're going to such and such timber sale, they'll know right where it's at, and what the expectations are is either getting a helicopter or an ambulance to you, instead of waiting for the unfortunate accident to happen, which we hope we don't, and then trying to figure out how to get that medical assistance to you in a timely manner. So this is just a way to front load that, so dispatch can play a faster and more efficient role in helping in those situations.